The evening started like any other family dinner at my parents' house. My sister Amanda dominating the conversation while my father nodded approvingly, and my mother refilled wine glasses. I, James Sullivan, sat quietly as usual, picking at my mother's overcooked pot roast. So that's why we decided your beach house is the perfect solution. Amanda's voice cut through my thoughts. I looked up from my plate. I'm sorry. What? James, you weren't even listening. My mother sighed. Your sister was explaining their situation. The renovations on their house will take 6 months, and they need somewhere to stay. I stared at them, processing what they were saying. My beach house, the one I'd spent 5 years renovating myself, the peaceful retreat I'd created away from the family chaos, was apparently being volunteered as their temporary home. We've already started packing, Amanda continued, bouncing her youngest on her knee. The moving company comes next week. The kids are so excited about living by the beach. The calm I'd cultivated through years of dealing with my family's presumptions settled over me like a familiar blanket. And when exactly were you planning to ask me about this? Oh, honey, my mother waved her hand dismissively. We know you're barely there anyway. You're always working in the city. It's just sitting empty. My father cleared his throat, using his reasonable voice, the one he'd perfected during his years as a corporate negotiator. Son, your sister needs help. Her husband lost his job. The renovation costs went over budget. You know how these things go. I did know. I knew exactly how these things went with Amanda, like the time she'd borrowed my car for a weekend and returned it 3 months later with a crushed fender, or when she'd needed a small loan for her photography business that somehow turned into $20,000 I never saw again. Actually, I said, taking a slow sip of water, the beach house isn't empty. I have plans for it. Amanda's husband Tom spoke up for the first time. Plans, but you're never there. We drive by sometimes. And it's always dark. Of course they drove by, probably with a spare key they'd had made without asking, just like they did with my apartment 3 years ago. I have contractors coming next week, I said calmly. Complete renovation. The whole place is being gutted. The silence that fell over the dinner table was almost comical. Amanda's fork clattered against her plate. What do you mean renovation? She demanded. You can't do that. We've already told the kids. Tommy Jr. has picked out his room. I pulled out my phone, showing them the contractor's agreement I'd signed 2 months ago. Demo starts Monday. The place won't be habitable for at least 8 months. But we've already shipped some of our furniture. Amanda's voice rose to the pitch. It always hit when she wasn't getting her way. The moving company is bringing it next week. You shipped furniture to a house you don't own without asking. I kept my voice level, even as I marveled at their audacity. That seems unwise. My mother jumped in, trying to smooth things over as she'd done our entire lives. James, surely you can postpone the renovation. Family has to come first. Family, I said, standing up slowly, should ask before making decisions about property they don't own. Now see here, my father started, but I cut him off. No, Dad. You see here. I pulled up another document on my phone. The security system installation contract. The house is being fitted with new security tomorrow. Any attempts to enter without authorization will trigger an immediate police response. Amanda burst into tears, her go-to move when manipulation was needed. How can you be so cruel? We have nowhere else to go. You have a house, I reminded her. The one you chose to renovate without having proper accommodation arranged first. But the contractors said, your poor planning doesn't constitute my emergency. I quoted the phrase my father had used countless times in his business dealings. His face reddened at hearing his own words turned back on him. Standing up, I gathered my coat. The demolition crew starts at 7 a.m. Monday. I suggest you contact whatever moving company you used and redirect your furniture. I'd hate for it to end up in a dumpster. James Alexander Sullivan. My mother's voice shook with anger. You sit back down. We're not finished discussing this. Actually, we are. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Amanda, I changed all the locks last month, just in case you got any ideas about that spare key I know you had made. The drive home was peaceful, my phone buzzing with ignored calls and messages. I'd learned long ago to keep my real life separate from family chaos. The beach house renovation had been planned for months. a complete transformation into my dream home for retirement. The timing of their attempted takeover was almost perfect. At my apartment, I poured a scotch and called my contractor. Mike, everything's still on schedule. I asked when he answered. You bet. Demo crew's ready for Monday. You sure about starting with the master bedroom? Most folks want that left till last so they have somewhere to sleep during renovations. I smiled, thinking of Amanda's texts about which bedroom she'd claimed for herself. Oh yes, start with that one. In fact, send me videos of the demo. I'd love to see the progress. The next morning, I drove out to the beach house early. The security company was already there, installing cameras and sensors. I walked through the rooms one last time, remembering how I'd spent weekends fixing it up, making it my own private sanctuary. My phone buzzed and message from Tom. Be reasonable. We can work something out. The kids are crying. I ignored it just like I'd ignored the 40 other messages from family members. Amanda had apparently been busy on the phone, playing victim to anyone who would listen. The security installer called me over to sign some papers. All set, Mr. Sullivan. Systems live. Any unauthorized entry will trigger an immediate alert to both you and local law enforcement. Perfect. I handed him final payment. And the camera's live feed to your phone. Motion sensors will alert you to any activity on the property. I spent the rest of the morning taking photos of each room, documentation for insurance purposes. I told myself, though really it was to preserve the memory of my peaceful retreat before its transformation. Around noon, a car pulled into the driveway. Amanda and Tom, with all 3 kids in the back seat. I watched through the security feed as they approached the front door. Amanda tried her key first, the one that no longer worked, then started pounding on the door. James, we know you're in there. Stop being childish. I waited until they made it to the back door before triggering the security system's warning announcement. You are trespassing on private property. Police have been notified. The speed with which they ran back to their car was almost comical. As they peeled out of the driveway, my phone lit up with a call from my father. What the hell are you playing at? He demanded when I answered. Having the police called on your own sister. The security system did exactly what it's designed to do. Protect my property from unauthorized entry. This is ridiculous. You're punishing your sister over a simple misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I kept my voice calm. She shipped furniture to my house without asking, planned to move in without permission, and then tried to enter the property after being explicitly told not to. That's not a misunderstanding, Dad. That's entitlement. She's your sister, and I'm your son. But that never seemed to matter much when it came to protecting my boundaries, did it? The silence on the other end was telling. Finally he spoke again, his voice quieter. What do you want, James? I want what I've always wanted. Respect for my property and my decisions. The renovation starts Monday. Any furniture left here will be disposed of. That's not a threat. It's a fact. After hanging up, I walked through the house one final time. Tomorrow I'd meet with the interior designer to finalize the plans for its transformation. The peaceful beach retreat would become something even better, a symbol of standing my ground. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. Please reconsider. Your sister has nowhere else to go. I typed back. She has exactly what she planned for me. A house under renovation. She just doesn't get to commandeer mine in the process. Turning off my phone, I sat on the back deck, watching the waves roll in. Sometimes the hardest part of being successful isn't building something worthwhile. It's protecting it from the people who feel entitled to take it from you. Monday would come. The demolition would begin. And my family would learn, finally, that some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed. The first crash of demolition echoed through the beach house exactly at 7 a.m. Monday morning. I stood in the driveway, coffee in hand, watching as the crew began dismantling the master bedroom. The very room Amanda had already mentally claimed as hers. Mike, my contractor, walked up with a tablet showing the day's schedule. Moving company truck just turned onto the street, he mentioned casually. Want me to handle it? Right on cue. A large moving van appeared, followed by Amanda's SUV. I sighed, taking another sip of coffee. No, I've got this. The moving truck stopped at the end of the driveway, blocked by my car and the construction vehicles. Amanda jumped out of her SUV, face already red with anger. "Stop this right now," she shouted, marching toward me. "Our furniture is in that truck." "That's unfortunate," I replied calmly, "because as you can see the house is under construction. No place to put furniture here." The moving crew looked uncertain, watching the scene unfold. Tom stayed in the SUV with the kids, avoiding conflict as usual. "You're being impossible." Amanda's voice cracked. "Where are we supposed to put everything?" "The same place you should have arranged before shipping it." "Storage." I handed her a business card. "There's a storage facility 10 minutes from here. I took the liberty of reserving a unit in your name. Paid for 6 months." She stared at the card, momentarily speechless. Behind us another crash announced the demolition team's progress. You're paying for storage. Consider it a lesson in planning ahead," I said. "The unit's available now. I suggest you redirect the moving truck before they charge you waiting fees." Amanda's face went through a series of emotions: anger, confusion, calculation. Finally she pulled out her phone and walked back to give the moving truck new directions. I turned to head inside when she called out, "Mom and Dad are cutting you out of the will for this." Stopping, I looked back at her. "They already did that 3 years ago, when I wouldn't invest in Tom's cryptocurrency scheme. You really should coordinate your threats better." The look of shock on her face was worth every penny of the storage unit rental. Inside, the demolition was proceeding exactly as planned. The master suite, with its dated 90s decor, that Amanda had gushed about keeping mint, was being stripped to the studs. The interior designer, Sarah, was marking walls that would be moved or removed. "Your sister seemed upset," Sarah noted, checking her plans. "She'll survive. She always does." I looked over the blueprints. "How soon can we start on the new layout?" "Once demo's done. We're looking at 2 weeks for structural changes." "That accent wall you wanted in the master? We found some reclaimed timber from an old fishing boat. It'll be perfect for the coastal theme." My phone buzzed. A series of texts from family members. Apparently, Amanda had been busy on social media, painting herself as the victim of her heartless brother. Aunt Patricia was particularly vocal. "Your poor sister. Those children were so looking forward to the beach. How dare you?" I muted the notifications and focused on the renovation plans. The new design would transform the house from a typical beach cottage into a modern coastal retreat. Every element Amanda had tried to claim would be gone, replaced by my vision. Around noon, my parents showed up. I watched on the security feed as they pulled into the driveway, then waited for the inevitable confrontation. "James," my mother's voice carried over the construction noise. "We need to talk about this." I met them outside, keeping a safe distance from the demolition area. "There's nothing to talk about. The renovation is happening." My father looked past me at the work in progress, his face tightening. "This is spite, pure and simple. You're punishing your sister because you can." "No," I corrected him. "I'm renovating my property according to plans made months ago. Amanda's poor planning doesn't change my schedule." "We raised you better than this," my mother said, tears forming. "Family helps family." Funny how that only applies when Amanda needs something. I pulled out my phone, showing them photos. "Remember when I needed help after the hurricane 2 years ago, when the house was flooded? Amanda was too busy with her photography business to help, and you both had that cruise you couldn't cancel." They had the grace to look uncomfortable at that reminder. "That was different," my father started. "Yes, it was. Because I didn't demand help. I didn't try to take over someone else's property. I handled it myself, like I always have." Another crash from inside made my mother wince. "At least let them store their furniture here in the garage." "The garage is being converted into a home gym next week." I checked my watch. "If you're done trying to manage my property, I have a meeting with the designer." As they left, I heard my mother on the phone, presumably with Amanda. "He won't budge. I don't know what's gotten into him." What had gotten into me was years of built-up boundaries, finally being enforced. Every crash of demolition was like therapy, destroying the old patterns of family expectation along with the dated decor. That evening, after the crews had left, I walked through the partially demolished house. The master suite was down to bare bones. Exactly as planned. Amanda's dream of walking right in and claiming it was literally reduced to rubble. My phone lit up with a call from Tom. Against my better judgment, I answered. Look, James, he started. I know we should have asked first, but surely we can work something out. The kids are devastated. The kids, I replied, will learn a valuable lesson about respecting other people's property, something their parents should have already taught them. That's harsh, man. We're family. Family, asks Tom. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't try to take over someone else's house and then play victim when it doesn't work out. After hanging up, I sent a message to the storage facility, paying for an additional 6 months, not out of guilt, but because I knew Amanda would let the payment lapse otherwise, creating another crisis that needed solving. The sunset over the ocean was particularly beautiful that evening. Standing on the back deck, the only part of the house not scheduled for major changes, I felt a deep sense of peace. The renovation wasn't just about updating the house anymore. It was about rebuilding boundaries, about finally saying no to the patterns of entitlement that had defined my family relationships for too long. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Amanda. I hope you're happy with yourself. The kids cried themselves to sleep. I typed back, they'll have a chance to learn from your mistakes. Consider it an investment in their character. Then I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and watched the waves roll in. Tomorrow would bring more demolition, more family drama, more attempts to make me feel guilty for protecting what was mine. But for now, the sound of the ocean was enough, drowning out the echoes of entitled demands and unearned expectations. 2 weeks into the renovation, the beach house was unrecognizable. The walls Amanda had planned to paint a cheerful yellow were gone, replaced by an open concept design that highlighted the ocean view. The kitchen she'd dreamed of updating with just a few small changes was gutted, making way for the professional-grade setup I'd always wanted. I stood in what used to be the master suite, now expanded to include a private deck, when Mike approached with his tablet. Got an interesting situation, he said, scrolling through his messages. Your sister's furniture was delivered here this morning. Moving company dumped it all in the driveway and left. My security app hadn't alerted me because the movers hadn't tried to enter the property. They'd simply unloaded everything at the end of the driveway and departed. Classic Amanda, creating a crisis that would force my hand. How long until it rains? I asked, checking the weather on my phone. Forecast says afternoon thunderstorms. I nodded, making a call to a local auction house I'd worked with before. Hi Susan, remember that estate clearance we discussed? How quickly can you send a truck? Within an hour, the auction house crew was loading Amanda's furniture. Each piece would be sold, the proceeds donated to a local youth shelter, minus the auction house's commission, of course. I made sure to document everything with photos and video. Right on cue, my phone rang. Amanda. What are you doing with our furniture? She demanded. The moving company sent me pictures. Solving a problem you created, I replied calmly. You can't leave furniture in my driveway. We didn't have a choice. The storage unit was too small. The one I paid for. The standard 10x20 unit that easily holds the contents of a 3-bedroom house. That storage unit, silence on her end, then you had no right to touch our things. Just like you had no right to dump them in my driveway. The furniture is being auctioned. You'll receive documentation of the sale and donation of proceeds. Donated. Her voice rose to a shriek. That's our furniture. Was your furniture. Now it's a tax deduction. Consider it the cost of learning about property rights. After hanging up on her inevitable threats, I turned to Sarah, who was reviewing the new kitchen plans. Your family's persistent, she observed, marking adjustments on the blueprint. They've had years of practice getting their way. I replied. But so have I standing firm. The afternoon brought the predicted thunderstorm, and an unexpected visit from my father. He stood in what used to be the family room, now a skeletal space, waiting for its transformation into a modern great room. This has gone far enough, he declared. Your mother can't sleep. Amanda's kids keep asking why Uncle James hates them. I continued reviewing material samples with Sarah, not looking up. Interesting how Amanda's poor choices become my responsibility. She's made mistakes. No. I interrupted, finally meeting his eyes. A mistake is accidentally breaking something. A mistake is forgetting an appointment, deliberately shipping furniture to someone else's house, and trying to move in without permission. That's not a mistake. That's entitlement. She's your sister. And I'm your son. But that didn't matter when she needed co-signers for her third failed business loan, did it? When you and Mom signed away my college fund to cover her debts. The old anger surfaced briefly before I pushed it back down. The renovation continues as planned. Amanda's furniture has been dealt with. Any further attempts to dump property here will be handled the same way. He left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. It never was with them. That evening, I sat with Mike and Sarah, reviewing the next phase of renovation. The great room's new windows would be installed tomorrow, opening up the view that Amanda had planned to block with her essential entertainment center. Security system picked up some activity. Mike mentioned checking his phone. Your sister's been driving by every few hours. I pulled up the camera feed on my tablet. Sure enough, Amanda's SUV was making another slow pass, Tom at the wheel this time. Should we be concerned? Sarah asked. No. They're looking for weaknesses, ways to force their way back in. They won't find any. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Family dinner Sunday. Your attendance is required. Required. As if I was still the compliant son who could be commanded to show up and play my part in their dynamics. I typed back, not available. The renovation requires my attention. Her response was immediate. This isn't a request. We need to resolve this situation as a family. The situation is resolved. Amanda's poor planning isn't my emergency. I turned back to the renovation plans, but my phone lit up again. This time with a group text including the entire extended family. Amanda had posted a tearful story about her children's belongings being stolen and sold off by their cruel uncle. The responses poured in. How could you do this to children? Family should come first. Your grandfather would be ashamed. That last one, from Aunt Margaret, actually made me laugh. My grandfather, a self-made man who'd built his own business from nothing, had left me the money for this house specifically because he'd seen how the family treated me. Stand your ground, he told me before he passed. Some people only respect boundaries when they can't break them. I muted the group chat and focused on the plans for tomorrow. The new windows would transform the space, bringing in light and views that the old design had ignored. Just like I'd ignored my own needs for years, always giving in to Amanda's latest crisis, always being the reasonable one who would understand and accommodate. Not anymore. Each changed wall, each new fixture, each improvement was another boundary made physical. The house was becoming a fortress, not against the ocean's storms, but against the tide of family entitlement that had eroded my boundaries for so long. My phone buzzed one final time. Private message from Tom. The kids missed their toys. Some of that furniture was irreplaceable. I typed back, actions have consequences. Teaching your children that lesson now will serve them better than teaching them they can take whatever they want. Then I turned off my phone and walked out onto the unfinished deck. The sunset painted the ocean in shades of amber and gold. Nature's reminder that beauty often comes from transformation. Tomorrow would bring more changes. More family drama. More attempts to make me feel guilty for protecting what was mine. But for now, the sound of waves drowned out the echoes of entitlement. And the house stood strong against both the ocean storms and the family tempest. 3 months later, I stood in the completed great room, watching the sunrise over the ocean through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The beach house transformation was complete. And with it my own transformation from accommodating son to someone who finally valued his own boundaries. The sound of car tires on gravel caught my attention. Through the security feed, I watched my parents' car pull into the driveway. This visit wasn't unexpected. They'd been trying to arrange a family reconciliation for weeks. I met them at the door, noting how they paused to take in the dramatic changes to the exterior. The dated beach cottage was gone, replaced by a modern coastal masterpiece. You've been avoiding us, my mother said as they stepped inside. Her breath caught as she saw the interior. Oh, the house was unrecognizable from the space Amanda had tried to claim. The open floor plan highlighted the ocean views, while reclaimed wood accents and custom built-ins created a warm, sophisticated atmosphere. This is different from what we expected, my father admitted, running his hand along the kitchen island's waterfall edge. That's because you expected me to cave, I replied calmly. To let Amanda move in, to sacrifice my plans for hers. Like always, my mother sighed, settling onto one of the custom bar stools. She's struggling, James. The renovation on their house is taking longer than expected. Poor planning on her part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. But she's your sister, and I'm your son, I countered, an echo of conversations past. But that never stopped you from expecting me to sacrifice everything for her convenience. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Through the great room windows, we watched waves crash against the shore. The furniture, my father started, was sold. The proceeds, as documented, went to the youth shelter. Amanda received all the paperwork. Some of those pieces were from her grandmother. Some of those pieces should never have been shipped to my property without permission. My mother wiped away tears, a familiar manipulation that no longer moved me. We just want peace in the family. Peace doesn't mean sacrificing boundaries. It means respecting them. I led them through the house, each room a testament to standing firm, each design choice a declaration of independence from family expectation. In the master suite, my mother gasped at the ocean view from the private deck. This could have been Amanda's room, she murmured. No, I said firmly. It could never have been hers. That was the point you all missed. This was never about the house. It was about respect, about boundaries, about finally saying no to the patterns that have defined this family for too long. As they left, my father turned back. Sunday dinner. Will you come? I thought about it, about the years of sitting quietly, while Amanda dominated every conversation, every decision, every moment. No, I said finally, but I'll host dinner here next month. One dinner, with clear boundaries and expectations. If those are respected, we can talk about making it regular. After they drove away, I walked through my transformed space. Each room represented a choice to stand firm, to value my own needs, to break free from the family pattern of endless accommodation. My phone buzzed. I text from Amanda. Mom says the house is beautiful. I'm sorry about the furniture. Can we talk? Progress finally. Small steps toward understanding that actions have consequences, that boundaries matter. I typed back. Dinner next month. Bring dessert. No discussions about moving in. Standing on the deck, watching the ocean, I smiled. Sometimes the greatest transformations aren't in the physical spaces we inhabit, but in the boundaries we learn to defend. The beach house stood proud against the shoreline, transformed inside and out, just like its owner.